everyone. My name is Sean Michael Rutherford, and I am a psychic medium. Welcome to Digital Pagan Pride Day. I am so grateful that I was asked to join in this beautiful event because I have been attending Pagan Pride Day for years and have always loved not only the people who put it on, but the people who attend it and the people who have gotten to lecture or talk or have classes. And it is my esteemed pleasure to do this class. Years ago, I had done a lecture on crystal grids and how to use crystals in your work. And now I get to talk about one of my other absolute favorite subjects, which is past lives. Being a psychic medium, not only do I read tarot, do psychic readings, and specifically work as a medium talking to the dead and communicating to loved ones who have crossed over, one of the things that I'm known for, I've been doing for quite some time, is past life readings. I not only work in the akashic records, but I also work to connect to your soul's past lives and find out traumas, scars, fears that have rolled over into the present life that you're living, that we are all living. And it was so exciting to me to be able to do this talk for everyone who is here and participating. Specifically, thank you to the people who are running Pagan Pride Day this year. One of the first questions that I tend to get is past life reading the same as a past life regression? And the answer to that is no, absolutely not. A past life regression is where a hypnotherapist or a past life regressionist brings you into a hypnotic state and journeys you into one of your past lives or multiple of your past lives in order to see it for yourself. What I do is I go in psychically and I either connect to your akashic records and find your book, or I connect to your soul and ask your soul to show me or bring me into one of your past lives. When we do a session, any session, give or take, gets about 3 past lives that come up in order for us to find a pattern or a sequence of events that can tell us what's going on with where you are in this life. And so during a past life reading, it's not necessarily in chronological order. So I don't necessarily start in the 1800s and go backwards to the 1600s or go back to prehistoric times. It's based off of the blockages, fears, or traumas that your soul is currently dealing with in this present life at the time of the reading. But what could that be? Well, I'll always give the example of me personally. Growing up, I loved to be in the water. As if you can't see from all the blues and the golds, I'm a Pisces. And so I loved being in the water. I loved to swim. But if you were to bring me to the ocean, I'd have severe anxiety. I'd keep feeling that I was going to get eaten by something or I was going to sink and drown, even though I had been swimming since I was very little and had never once had an experience of drowning or almost drowning. So I would have this fear of not wanting to get into the ocean water, not wanting to go past my ankles or my knees when I was in the ocean. And it was always hilarious because my dad, we would vacation with my family and he'd always have to get a hotel with a pool, even the times when we were like right on the beach, because I refused to go swimming in the ocean. Later in my life, in my early 20s, I had seen a vision of one of my past lives of where I was a captain of a ship way back when. I think it was ancient times, and we were ferrying gold and things like that for a trade, and I refused to leave the ship and evacuate the ship, and I went down with the ship. And I remember as soon as I had seen that, as soon as I had re-envisioned that for myself, that fear started to alleviate. And what I realized was that it was masking my true love of the ocean, because as a sea captain, someone who'd spent his life on the ocean, I felt betrayed by her. I felt betrayed and killed by the thing that I had loved the most. And that had stuck with me for many, many years. And then I had later gotten a past life reading by another medium, and who did past life readings as well, which was so nice to see, where he told me that I was a boy around 10, 12, who was playing near these cliffs and these little eddies, these little bays and stuff of water, and I had slipped and fallen, and I had cut myself really badly on my head and was unconscious, and eventually got attacked by a shark, and I died that way. And that completely answered why I was terrified of sharks. Because I remember as a kid being afraid of them, but petting them at the aquarium and whatnot. I was like, this made no sense to me. Like, I understand the shark isn't doing anything wrong, but I'm terrified of this beyond reasonable means. So it really pushed me into continue reading for people and doing as many past life readings as I could, because I felt that there was something to this. And so I started practicing and studying it and understanding past lives and how it works. And that has led me to doing this beautiful talk with all of you today. So let's get into one of the other major reasons of why you would get a past life reading. So we talked about this trauma that I had of being afraid of the ocean, not wanting to get into it. Well, in this life, I had no real reason to do that. I have that fear, right? I had no real reason to have that fear in this life. But let's talk about something a bit more realistic, something that's actually going to affect our life. What if you have this fear, this irrational fear that you can't understand, of getting behind a car, getting behind the wheel of a car? And so for a very long time in your life, you refused to drive yourself anywhere. That would really inhibit what you could experience in this life. So getting a past life reading, you find out that in the 60s or 70s, when cars weren't brand new, but they were still kind of fresh onto the scene, you got in a really atrocious accident and died when you had first started driving your first car. Well, what's going to happen is your soul is going to put that as a trauma, because you saw everyone else enjoying their vehicles, you saw everyone else driving and being safe, but then you get behind a car and you crash and you die suddenly and unexpectedly. And your soul is shocked by this sudden happening. And it writes a note in your file: beware cars, they're not trustworthy. And so when it comes back into the next life, you may be someone who never has to drive. You may be someone who lives in the city, like New York, who everything's nearby, you never have to drive, and it's never a problem. Or you might come back as somebody who's very wealthy, who has a chauffeur, who you never have to drive yourself. But at some point, your soul wants to heal this trauma, because the soul's purpose is to grow into perfection and into greatness and let go of trauma and pain in order to finally rest on the other side and not feel like it's having to carry these burdens, right? Well, it's going to put you in a life where you have to drive, where you have to put yourself behind the wheel of the car in order to deal with that trauma. However, you're not really going to have the consciousness, the awareness that this is a trauma from a past life. All you're going to know, is that you're afraid of this for no rational reason within this lifetime. What I do is I go into your past life, I communicate with your soul and the energy from that life, And I find out what happened. I find out why it happened. And I bring that back to you with, okay, so this fear is because you died in this car accident. What happened was you weren't paying attention. You were enjoying being in the car far too much because it was a new experience to you, that you were not paying attention to the road ahead of you. And your soul was actually trying to teach you to pay attention to moments that are extremely important. And that is how we move on from that. What happens is, going forward, we heal that issue by simply bringing it to your awareness and can let go of the fear. 2, we have you work on the issue of, it's not about the fact that you were afraid of driving because you died. It was because a part of you felt guilty that you were not paying attention to such an important process, and you died because of that. Not everything's as it seems. So once we acknowledge that, your soul can go, oh yeah, that's right. I'm not afraid of cars. I'm afraid that I will let myself down and hurt myself because of my inability to pay attention. So, when we're doing past life readings, we'll do this with 2, 3, maybe 4 lifetimes in order to unblock whatever that blockage is for you at that time of your life. And it's a very beautiful experience because a lot of times it'll validate the reason why you love the things that you love in your life is because you've been there. I had a past life in Greece multiple times. It's why I'm obsessed with everything Greek. As a child, I was pulled to it heavily. I knew things I shouldn't have understood, and I understood things I shouldn't have really been able to understand as a child. And I was drawn to the understandings. And we have a lot of people who have that feeling because so many people of the ancient Greeks are reincarnating again. The last time they reincarnated was during the Renaissance. And now we're reincarnating again. And that's bringing up a lot of those feelings of why we're bringing old ways into new days. And that's part of where these blockages are. We don't understand where it's coming from. So, that's how it heals to get past life readings. That is what is healed through looking into where you've been. And let's face it, we don't ever just leave our home and venture out unless we look at a map. And when we look at a map, or we map quest something, or we put the directions on our GPS, we're looking at a road that someone else has already traveled. We're looking at a path that someone else has already proven is safe and available. When you do a past life reading, you look at the path that you've already taken. You're looking at information that your soul has already inscribed into your DNA and saved for you for later research. I tell people that the soul compiles information much like we do between jobs. For instance, I've had 30 jobs in my life. I've worked for 4 different pizza places, and each one of them taught me how to make pizza. I still to this day know how to make pizza, though I don't ever make pizza. But it's in there. It's filed away within my mental filing cabinet. Well, every lifetime that we reincarnate into, our soul files away the experiences for us to use later in case we need them. Now, I had a job in this life, I had a job in this life where I worked for a call center for a telecommunications company. And I learned how to communicate with people who couldn't see me. I understood then and there that diction and pronunciation and speaking well was very important. I also had a mother who was a grammar freak, So I learned how to communicate with people over the phone for long distances from all over the country for so many different reasons, and be able to understand them at a long distance. Fast forward a few years later, and I ended up doing majority of my readings over the phone, and it was extremely comfortable for me. So I use those skills regularly. As a psychic and a medium, I have been a medium and a psychic in previous lifetimes. I've been a healer in previous lifetimes. I talk about having good pronunciation and then I mess it up. Oh well. I've been a healer and a medium and a psychic in previous lifetimes, and I am good at it now, and I remember how to do it now because I've done it so much. And any skill that we come into this life, such as being an artist or someone who's good with science and biology, those of us who are great at our skills, it's because we remember them in our filing cabinet, our spiritual filing cabinet, or what we call the akashic records, or the akash. And so it's so important to be open to regaining this information, because it's you reading the book that you have written about all the things that you've done in your life. And it's beautiful, but you have to take the good and the bad. I've made mistakes. I've let people down. I was doing a past life reading for a friend of mine once, and this is hard to acknowledge, it was a past life where she was, trigger warning possibly, where she was someone who was being sold as property, and I was the auctioneer selling people. And I had to stop the reading immediately because I broke down and started crying, because the idea of doing something so atrocious was against my pacifistic belief system in this lifetime, and in my understanding that every life matters. And I couldn't believe that I had done something so atrocious. So I delved into being in past lives even more after that, and understanding that we all experience the good and the bad. We've all had a moment where we've killed someone. We've all had a moment of being killed by someone, because it's what teaches us value of human life and nature and living and life, right? And at some point we experience all these different things, and it's why certain things might trigger people more than others. I know that I've been a detective in a past life because I'm obsessed with shows like Criminal Minds, where they have to hunt down people who are psychopaths and whatnot, because I'm very interested in the human brain and how it works. I also know that I spent a time as a scientist because I'm obsessed with the science of medicine. And so these are not things I do heavily in this life because they don't matter super heavily in this life, but it's interests. And that matters to you because that's how you start understanding what your soul has been through, what your soul has experienced, what your soul is culminating to. Our souls come into the world of the living to understand existence, individuality, life, and struggle and power. When we're in spirit, we have everything that we ever need at our fingertips. We can be whatever we want. If we die at the age of 80, we can look like we're 40 years old. I see it all the time when I communicate with loved ones who have crossed over. My mother died in her 60s. She comes back in her late 30s, early 40s. My dad died in his 70s. He comes back as a 12-year-old. Because that's what they want. So our souls have omnipotence in spirit, but when we're alive, we deal with having to understand building and finding and gaining and working towards and achieving, right? And working together. So how do we do this if we choose to do this on our own? that was what I was asked by the people who asked me to do this lecture. How can someone delve into past lives themselves? And I amp up through all of this information to show that I've delved into my own past lives and that it's completely possible. And there's a couple of ways that you can do this. And a couple of them are really, really fun. And a couple of them are just logic. So I'm going to give one of each. And I'm going to give something that's logical and spiritual, and one that is fun and spiritual. Okay? So one of the first things I tell people when it comes to getting your information, the easiest and the most logical way for those who, in general, is to go find your Akashic book. I do offer sessions for reading your Akashic book, where we go in and we look at it and we do healing work on it, and it's a really interesting thing, and I'm about to tell you how to do this. It takes a little time, it takes a little practice to really get up there. Everyone I have taught to do this, and the classes that I've taught to do this, have really enjoyed it. Even though this is going to be a bit of a faster paced lesson. So to get to your Akashic records, you try to find a quiet place, sit down, get comfortable, and I do suggest putting on something that's like a sound that is very light, very relaxing. I listen to whale sounds when I do this because whales are are a spiritual animal for me. Not a spirit animal, but like I'm very spiritually connected to whales. And so I put them on and it relaxes me. It opens me up, it makes me feel like I'm free. If you can find some music that does that to you, that's relaxing and soft and gentle, do that. If you can't, that's perfectly fine. Close your eyes, and what you're doing is you're going to sit and you're going to allow yourself to just become very centered and relaxed in your body. At that point, you're going to start seeing yourself in a meadow. And this meadow is in the middle of the day. It's a beautiful blue sky day. The sun is above you. The green grass is below you. And in the distance, there's a beautiful oak tree line. And I show the oak tree line all the way around this meadow as a barrier of protection. I don't tell people that so much when I'm doing it, but I'm sharing that with y'all now. The oak trees to me represent protection, and I see that as being protected while you're in this meditation. While you're looking through this beautiful meadow and you're feeling the wind in your hair and the grass beneath your feet and the warm sun above you that is shining down and caressing your skin, you're going to see an elevator. An elevator in the distance, about 50, 30, 40 feet in front of you. I use an elevator because at some point we've all been on an elevator and we know that feeling of going up. You go walking towards the elevator, you get into the elevator, and you push the button that says AR, Akashic Records. It should be all the way at the top of the buttons. And you let the elevator take you up. And while you're in the elevator, you're opening yourself up to your loved ones and your guides and anyone who's there to help you on this journey, because any help with love from loved ones is a benefit. The elevator reaches the top floor to the Akashic Records, and as the doors open, we see this beautiful, overgrown, very green English garden where there's walkways between all the raised flower beds, and there's ivy, and there's beautiful trees and everywhere. And in the distance, on the other end of this walkway, you see this beautiful greenhouse that's made of glass and wrought iron, and it's huge. It's 2 stories. It's very Victorian looking greenhouse. And it's made of glass, and there's these 2 beautiful doors in front of you. Before you can go into the Akashic Record, you have to make sure that you're emotionally balanced, because this is a very energetically neutral area. So you want to make sure that you just take a feeling of where you are and understand that. And you want to then ask permission to go into the Akashic Records. This can take a couple of times because the record keepers, the spirits that take care of the Akashic Records, have to keep the energy there neutral because it does affect people. They may not let you in the first time, but keep practicing this and getting to the Akashic Records. This will take a little time, but eventually you'll get in, second, third, maybe time. You'll walk in and you'll see this beautiful English library, dark red carpets, beautiful wood accents, like you're in this Oxford library. And as you walk through this hall, you'll see tables everywhere to sit and read books, much like you would see in an English library. And then you'll see rows and rows and rows and rows of bookshelves full of books, and that just continues as far as the eyes can see. And from there, you'll just sort of find your book. You'll say your name, and you'll just come, looking for the book and say your name, and let the book find you. And then next thing you know, you're looking at a bookshelf, and there's a book in front of you, and that book is going to look different than every other book on the shelf. One of the rules is you're not allowed to go looking through anyone else's books. Please use kindness and compassion with that, and have the scruples and the understanding of that right or wrong of don't go looking through other people's books, and don't abuse that. Because there are people's books there that you could go look at, and it's not fair for you to do that. So then you take your book to the table and you can look through it. You can look for information. There may be some things in that book you're not going to be able to see. A lot of times you're not able to see the future of something that's going to happen that you're not allowed to know about, because there are some things that we need to be surprised by. But you go in looking for something specific. What about my past do I need to understand better? What traumas from my past have I been through? I always tell people to assess the book. Look for any damages to the binding. Look to any tears or breakages on the book. Look to see how it's made. Is it leather? Is it wood? Is it metal? All these things will tell you what about your soul when you look at the book. And this is something that I do in a reading, is I assess the book and read you based on the book, and then look for information. Once you're done, you close the book, you turn it to the shelf, and then you just retrace your steps out of the library, out of the gardens, down the elevator, back to the meadow, and then you wake up. That is a more logical version. That is really great for people who need images, who see things, who are very logical and can understand picturing situations or something like that. The more fun, more right brain skill of doing this is to write a story. So get a piece of paper and a pen, pencil, carry on, whatever you want to do, and write a story. Start off with, in my past life, I was a, and then whatever the first thing that comes to mind, write that down. I was a farmer. And when I was a farmer, it was the year 1822. When I was a farmer in 1822, I was a male, and I had a wife, and I had 3 kids, and my 3 kids got very ill due to a sickness that came through the town, and my 3 children were very ill, and all 3 of my children passed, and my wife was never the same. And write this story, and one of the things that it was hard for me is that I felt that I couldn't take care of my kids, and that traumatized me because I felt like I was not a provider and I was not able to care for children. And as I say this to you, I uncover a past life where I was a farmer and I had a wife and my 3 kids died, and I could not feel like I could provide for children. And in this life, I do not want to have kids. I'm terrified that I'm not going to be able to take care of them. And so I share that moment with y'all that I just uncovered this past life. Because as I was saying it, I felt it was part of me. And the important part of that way of uncovering a past life is that you have to flow with it. You can't judge it. It's great for artists. It's great for right-brained people who love writing stories and authors, and people who are really left-brained and don't want to do their spirituality that way. So if you're someone who's very if you're very left-brained, you're like a lawyer or an accountant or a doctor. If you're something that's very mental and logical, but you like to incorporate more artistic ways into your spirituality, that is a great way to do it. Write a story about your past life. And not only do you now get to experience this yourself, now you have a story on paper that you get to read later, or you get to put in your book of shadows, or you get to file away for meditation later, and write as much as you can about that story. How old were you when you died? How did you die? What hardships did you encounter? Asking yourself those questions and then just letting yourself write down the answer is a beautiful way to find out your past life. It is the easier of the two for some people. The other one's going to be really easy for some other people, and whichever way you choose to do it is perfectly fine. I have loved learning about my past lives and helping people find out about theirs. It has helped me realize where I've been so I can focus on where I'm headed. And that is the most important thing that we can do in life. Because the more we realize what we've been through, it makes us realize how much we can handle and just how much we're capable of. And when we do that, when we realize our power, when we realize our strength and our ability to accomplish our dreams, the barriers before us, the blockages, the boundaries before us that have been placed against our will start to shiver, and they're scared when we get to them. Well, everyone, thank you all so much for coming to this lecture or watching this lecture. This is so different than the other Pagan Pride days that we've had, but I'm so grateful to have been able to add to this wonderful event. Thank you all to the amazing people who put this on, and most of all, thank you all to those who come and support Pagan Pride Day. If you would like to learn any more about me and my work, you can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Psychic Sean, or you can go to my website, psychic-, which is psychic dash, the up dash, not the underscore, the middle, psychic-sean.com. It was a pleasure helping you understand your past lives, and if you ever have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. As I always say, and I always end everything off, I wish everyone well, and as always, in love and light.